to talk to Gage.
I think Civil War is a masterpiece of a film, and I don't understand why it gets so much hate online. So maybe hate's a strong word, but most of the videos that I have watched online on YouTube regarding this film is almost always negative. It's almost always talking about how the journalist idea was a bad idea for the premise and the plot of the movie. They thought that like the trailers were a little misleading, which admittedly I guess they kind of were. I'll get to kind of my history in a second, but I didn't watch the trailers that much when it was coming out. I didn't like actively seek them out. It was enough to get me interested in it though. And yeah, so I've just seen like a lot of sort of down opinions on the movie. That a lot of people don't like that they don't even explain why the war is going on, what the problem is. But me, I think this movie is a masterpiece. I think it is actually phenomenal and amazing in so many ways. It's so much better than it would be if we got the movie that people wanted this to be. That idea would, I believe, would have been a lesser movie at the end of the day, because this one is so much more original and creative and has an artistic flair to it, and I love it. So let's like really dive in and get into some of my thoughts on this movie. I love the look of this movie. I don't know if it's color grading or the fact that it's the 4K version, but it looks nice. Like, it just has a really pretty color scheme, really nice look to it. Everything looks like real and good, and sound design. Oh my gosh, like I was so impressed when I saw this in theaters a little while back. When it was in theaters, it was amazing, the sound design. And I normally am not like a sound design type of guy where I really pay attention to it very much in most movies, but this one stood out to me. I was like, whoa, like the sound effect of like the guns, you know, people talking obviously, but the guns and like the helicopters coming down, and the one like chopper with the minigun, and just the sound of that thing going off was so good. And the tanks rolling also sounds amazing. Just a overall amazing sounding movie. I was very, very impressed with that part of it. But really, my meat and potatoes when it comes to this movie is sort of the deeper aspects to it, the theming, you could say. But I love how this movie isn't just a straightforward type of war movie or action movie. It would have been so much more generic and basic, I feel like, if it was that way. But Alex Garland was the guy who did this movie. I believe he wrote and directed it, and he did such a good job with weaving in this sort of subplot and this theming about sort of transitioning from not valuing human life to ultimately really wanting to keep your life. And that's sort of what I see it as, because obviously we have, you know, this main character played by Kristen Dunst, who is not afraid of being on the front lines, not afraid of getting shot or people around her getting shot. You know, she's just used to it. She's desensitized to this stuff happening. Her arc is basically ultimately coming to a place where she values her life. And you see this in multiple moments in the movie. One of the biggest ones that stood out to me upon this most recent rewatch was the scene where they're pulling up to the Christmas area and they're getting shot at, and they find the two soldiers and they're talking to them. When Joel and then the little girl, when they're talking to those two soldiers, Kristen Dunst's character is just laying down, and she's like, you know, looking at the girl, and then she kind of dissolves into the background. Like she becomes out of focus and instead focuses on just the flowers that are like right there in front of her. And so she's just like laying there, you know, someone's shooting at them, you know, if they see them. Obviously she's in safety, but they're in a dangerous situation, and yet she's just sitting there just breathing and enjoying the flowers. And she's not worrying about it. And she's not even worried about taking pictures like, you know, the other two are. And so that really was interesting. That stood out to me. I was like, why is this scene here? Like, what is that for? You know, in relation to the rest of the movie and the rest of her arc, what's going on? Because I remember that being the most confusing aspect to me when I watched it the first time, is I didn't really get the sort of personal story going on. I more so attached myself to maybe the bigger line of thinking. You know, because like I said, the movie does not necessarily explain why this civil war is going on, but I think that was the best choice one could have done. I think it would have been a bad idea to get too in detail about what's going on, or too specific about, you know, red versus blue, or which side is like the good side or the bad side. That would have made people really critical of Alex Garland and of this film, and maybe not even giving it a shot. Because Alex Garland's political and beliefs and all that doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to this movie, at least, even though they do matter. But they don't matter in relation to this movie because he's not being overly political. And I know some people think that sounds pretty dumb. In a movie called Civil War, you should be very political. And it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. You know, it's not overblown. It's not separating or dividing people who watch this movie. And I'm thankful, because I might not even like it as much. I'm sure I wouldn't like it as much if the movie took a hard stance one way or another. It would be interesting for sure, but I don't think I would admire it to the level that I do, because it keeps things kind of vague, or at least it just chooses not to talk about it. And for some people that was, you know, too much to get over, and they don't like the movie for that. But for me, I thought it was a genius way to have this movie work without separating people who watch it and really dividing them. And, you know, some people probably really like a deeply political drama / action movie. Some people really like that, and honestly maybe I would too in some way. I just don't think it would be nearly as original or interesting if it'd been anything other than Alex Garland's vision for this film. So yeah, then ultimately, you know, the way the movie concludes, it becomes sort of like a tragedy, you know, because this little younger girl character, she sort of becomes desensitized and, you know, front line taking these pictures. And then Kristen Dunst's character sort of becomes more afraid of it. She takes a backseat. She doesn't really want to be there. And it's really powerful. Like, it's a powerful, like, I guess you would call it a subplot or sub meaning in the movie, but it is there, and it's really interesting. It really, really is. And I found myself liking that part of the movie even more on this most recent rewatch that I had. Yeah, I genuinely think this is an amazing movie. I rank it very, very high, and I even had the gall to say that I believe it could be maybe a top 10 favorite movie of all time, if I give it a little more time, maybe another rewatch. You know, it's one that I'm kind of like, maybe it is a top 10, which sometimes that's how it works with top 10. Sometimes it's something that you know instantly, but sometimes, you know, you gotta kind of wait. You gotta kind of rewatch it, see how you're feeling a little later. Does it really stack up? But I genuinely think this movie has really resonated with me personally, and I'm really sad that more people don't see this movie for how good I really think it is, you know? If you're someone who didn't like the movie, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Or if you did like the movie, I really am interested to see what you think, because I feel like most videos and people talking online are more on the negative side of this movie, more on the, not really getting it or liking it for the things it went for. But I think it's amazing. I genuinely really like this movie, and I would be very interested to see what y'all think about it. If you didn't like it originally, maybe give it another watch, just with a different frame of mind going into it. I think you'll be surprised. Oh, the soundtrack also is really amazing, and I also want to point out that the acting I thought was also very, very well done. I don't know why Joel as a character stands out to me so much, but he really does every single time, even though he's definitely like more side character. Like, he's less focused. I think more focus is on the two girl characters and the kind of their dynamic and that story going on there and the subtext. But Joel just stands out to me. Like, his actor, I'd like to see him in more things, because I feel like he's pretty cool, maybe underrated. But yeah, I think I'll probably just end it there. I think that's like the broad strokes of my thoughts on this movie. Yeah, like I said, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this movie down below. Let me know. Like, I'm honestly really curious. I think this movie is amazing, but I'd love to know, even if you hate this movie, just let me know. I think it'd be really cool. Yeah, I think that's about it. See y'all next time.